You're listening to Ernestly Speaking, the only weekly podcast that covers friends, foes, and anything that goes. And now, for your badass host, Ernest Owens. And we're back for another episode of Ernestly Speaking with your host, Ernest Owens, myself. Well, it is the end of January. We're into February. And this week has been full of surprises and some real interesting things have been going on. I cannot tell you how much I am excited to do this episode because there's a lot I can now kind of talk about. And I've just been very excited about all of the things. So let me just start off by just saying that, I'm snowed in. We're all snowed in, but not anything super crazy. I've seen some pictures. I've seen your pictures on social media. Everybody's super snowed in. I call it soup season. I have definitely have had the best homemade soup. Homemade, okay? When I mean homemade, I'm talking the chicken was fresh. The noodles were, not pre-canned. The vegetables were fresh and cut, while other folks I know, good friends of mine, are in Jamaica, vacationing. They're looking over at us snowed in like, what's going on? I'm over here, getting real nice and toasty and, enjoying this time, okay? Because, I must say, I kind of did miss the snow a little bit. It was just, I was like, it can't just be no snow. It's got to be winter. Where is winter in wintertime? So I'm happy for the snow in January, February. I'm happy that we're into this weather. I did this episode a little late in the week because of the fact that I wanted to watch the entire Janet Jackson documentary that was on Lifetime because I have some thoughts. I've seen it. I have some opinions. I got some opinions about a lot of things. And I guess I feel like let's just get into Janet real quick, before I get into some of my typical updates. Omicron cases are going down. I'm super excited to hear that. Some organizations and groups that I'm a part of, they're starting to go back to in-person. My organization, the Philadelphia Association of Black Journalists, are implementing a boosted mandate. So all of our in-person guests must be boosted. Boosted is the new fully vaccinated in our vernacular. And that's that's important to me. So I was really big on getting people to really take that seriously and to really, really get, proactive in, seeing that. Because, unless you are fully vaccinated within, less than 5 months, then you don't need to get a booster. But for people who got fully vaccinated a year ago, what's up? Let's get boosted. It's time, because the way that Omicron and other people have had breakthrough cases, it's time. And we're so I feel in myself that we're closer to the finish line than before. I'm not saying we're completely out of this. I don't think that COVID is going away forever. But I do think there is a silver lining. And we're getting close. And I really believe that herd immunity can be achieved. That's my opinion. Okay. But I do think we can get closer to herd immunity. I do believe that people are starting to wake up to a certain extent. Some people are not. Okay. Like Joe Rogan. And I think it's important for me to talk about this because I know some of y'all saw my tweet. Spotify right now, I'm not really feeling Spotify right now. I'm really feeling some type of way. For those of my listeners who are listening to this podcast on Spotify, I'm not saying I'm leaving, but it has been on my mind in the past couple of days. I saw the legendary Joni Mitchell and Neil Young have both removed their playlists out of Spotify because of Joe Rogan and his mass misinformation, his anti-vax rhetoric that has continued to plague Spotify. And they're putting their foot down and saying enough is enough. And actually, there's many users that are getting out of Spotify, signing off, not being a part of it, taking a stand. And Apple Music, who does not have a relationship with Joe Rogan, they're even throwing shots by putting Neil Young's collection on their main page. And now they're going to probably have to put the legendary Joni Mitchell, who has the iconic album Blue. It's a big deal. I know some people are like, you know what, those are oldies, they're not too big of a deal, but I want to see a big figure do it. So a really major, these are big figures in music, but just someone who's current and contemporary, like a Cardi B or someone, say, I'm pulling my music, like one of the top artists, like a Justin Bieber or The Weeknd, just say, you know what, fuck it, I'm pulling my music out. It's not like y'all getting that much money off of Spotify spins, no shade. I hear it's not that much money going around. But it is a big implicator and a way for artists to chart, right? Those streams help a single chart. And Spotify is people are definitely generating a Spotify to listen to music. As far as my podcasts go, Spotify is the number 2 place that people listen to my podcast. Apple is number 1. I think that there is a moment, though, that we have to think about this. So I want to see how much is going, but I've had some moments where I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna pull this shit right off. But I'm still at the same time recognizing, hey, this is a podcast that's growing and emerging. I do want to see some other bigger names step up, and I want to see what Spotify ends up doing, but much to be seen. But it has crossed my mind, I must say, the last couple of days, because it's just like, what's going on here? I'm seeing YouTube step up a little bit to remove misinformation. I'm seeing a lot of stuff happening, right? But this is interesting. So we'll stay tuned on that, to be honest. As far as other situations, because I do like to talk about things that are personal, even, or not as personal, but a situation. This is not me. Let me just say before I start this is not about me, but I get letters and inquiries from listeners all across and situations, and it's like almost like an Ask Ernest kind of thing. And people always ask me questions about what would I do in certain situations. So, this is one of those situations. So there is someone who is getting, I believe, married. They are in this process where they have friends and other people that they are looking for being involved in their wedding. How they've gone about the process has kind of been a little interesting. They have kind of, pointed to different traveling and different things to justify, why they're not going out. People blame the pandemic. People blame COVID. People blame these things. Well, in this situation, a person that I know, kind of suggested that they weren't, going to go out because of the pandemic, and they were like, oh, I'm kind of, trying to avoid that. And so they did not go to certain festivities of mutual friends that I'm aware of. Well, shortly after them making that decree, they have been found going out, traveling, and going on excursions and things of that nature with people that they're friends with, and yada, yada, yada. What do you do in situations like that when said person might be on Instagram putting these posts up saying one thing today, but another thing happens tomorrow? How do you deal with that, And that was the question that was posed to me. I think that what's really important is just people just being more honest and transparent about their situations. A lot of people have used the pandemic as a scapegoat for why they choose to go out or not go out. And they'll tell one friend another thing and then do another thing. And listen, social media will get motherfuckers caught up. Okay? I look at social media as a tool. Y'all know that. I tell that all the time. If you're looking for a diary out of me, you're not going to get it on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. I try to use social media as a tool to promote work that I'm doing. I look at it as a place to give people major announcements and big updates, to let people know what I'm working on and how it resonates and connects to you. And then, I have outward opinions about shit that's just going on in the world. But that's how I operate. That's what I do on social media. I know everyone is very different. And I think sometimes social media will get people in trouble, get people caught up. And so in this situation, they were kind of putting everything, out there. And I was just like, wait a minute, this isn't what I perceive to be how you get down. And all of a sudden you're doing something different. And so when people are looking and saying, what is this? What's going on? It's that moment where how do you confront that is the question I was given. And I think the best way to confront these situations is to just really just say, call a thing, right? You look at something and say, hey, you said this, you did this. Why? And if that person has an answer response that makes sense to you, then I would say accept it. And if it's bullshit, say it's bullshit and dip. Simple as that. I think that's my advice. And a lot of people have said that. They've seen, situations with friends and colleagues. And it is interesting. I've seen a lot of social groups I'm a part of where people will say things like, oh, I'm trying to stay home. This pandemic is wild. And then you look and they're like at the club, a music festival, places like the Poconos or, other places. I don't know, but they be out. And you're sitting there like, that's very interesting because you're saying this the other day and you're doing this the next day. So I just think it's important for people to just be consistent and be honest. And, social media cameras are always telling you. You know what I'm saying? People always try to be slick, try to do the close friend thing, do the only friends thing. Listen, the internet is wild out here. And, somebody should tell that to Tristan Francis. Or Tristan Thompson. I'm sorry, Tristan Thompson. Freudian slip. I'm saying random names. I was thinking of a person named Tristan Thompson, the NBA player. Tristan Thompson had a situation recently where, he got caught basically fucking over Khloe Kardashian. Which, to be clear, we always knew he was cheating on Khloe. And yet again, more video footage, more things show it. Some follower on TikTok had got the footage and, Khloe showed her chicken leg hands, or that's what they were describing on the internet, trying to act like she was unbothered. But it just seems to be a circle with them. Honestly, I've been so detached from them and all of their drama because I just don't know. I just, at some point, I'm just like, you all got too much motherfucking money to be acting this stupid. But money can't buy you class. And I'm learning that every day. But just, my goodness, how stupid. Like, I mean, I'm just like waiting for the other, I don't know, shoe to drop, like an endorsement deal. I know there might be a show on Hulu they're doing, but like clearly there's a show. There's a show here. Somebody's filming something. They want us to watch something. I'm just convinced. I hope they're not trying to sell a book because I won't read anything from them. But there must be a documentary or a special or a new TV show coming because there's so much of this nonsense that it's just bound to be on somebody's camera. And the shit is just getting a little corny now. It's like now the new acting is reality TV. That's the new breakout. The new breakout stars are quote unquote reality TV stars. I know reality TV people say it's fake and it is, right? But like, I don't know. Maybe I like my fakeness on TV a little differently. Like, I just want that shit to be on the low. I don't want to see anything and know about it till the show comes. Like, that's what I used to appreciate about Love and Hip Hop, and still do. That a lot of Love and Hip Hop drama you don't know until you watch the show. Like, there's hints and there's little things, but what I would appreciate about it is that you really didn't know any of this shit was going. Like, I didn't know what was going on with Kirk and Rashida until I watched, Love and Hip Hop Atlanta that season, right? This shit is so out there now with the Kardashians that honestly, by the time it goes on TV, the way that they respond to it is really bad. And they have that stupid accent they do. Well, I talked to Khloe and she was upset. Yeah. And they were all mad. And I talked to Kanye and it was awkward, like really bad. That's how they talk all fucking day on the show. That's exactly the thing. And it's like, you're not learning anything. Everyone's just doing something and I don't know what the fuck it is, but it's just not good TV. And I think that's what's going to happen. I had a really close friend, I won't name her, that used to think that they were doing something on that show. And I was like, this show is trash. These people are not our friends. I don't like them. They're garbage. Stop watching it. And now she 100% agrees with me. Like, she can't stand them. I think she can't stand them more than she can't stand me. Or we both do not deal with the Kardashian Jenner clan. But, that being said, it's clear that something is happening. Even Kanye's actions, right? We now are coming to an understanding that Genius, the Netflix documentary Kanye's been working on, because now everybody wants to have a documentary. Like, everybody wants to have a Vegas residency. We're starting to see that it's obvious that Kanye is about to push something. And what did I tell you all? As you all probably guessed, I don't know. He is now having Donda 2, that album, coming out February 22nd. Now, most people know that album is probably not going to come out February 22nd because it's probably going to come out February 29th, which means it's not coming out in February, y'all. Y'all know how Kanye loses his cool and does not ever put out anything on time. However, and get the joke of why it says come out February 29th. It shouldn't be that hard to guess why that's a joke. But, clearly all these antics is for him to promote that album. And Future, which is a toxic king, he is the producer of the album. Sensational. And then there's a documentary coming out in February. So I guess Black History Month is going to be diluted by Kanye madness. Just putting it out there. So then the crazy part is, and I don't know, something just came upon my spirit to say this. Y'all, white people that listen to this podcast, let me make this known very, very early. Before anyone tells you this, I want to make this known. Next month, when Black History Month starts, please don't go to a black person. Send an email. Say anything like Happy Black History Month. Do not do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't tell a black person Happy Black History Month. Please don't do it. Don't. Look, I don't even tell women Happy Women's Month in March. I just think it's corny and performative. Like, it's awkward virtue signaling. It doesn't make sense. Just don't do it. Now, you can say Happy Black History Month, like as in Happy Black History Month, as in a post or whatever you choose. But don't tell a black person when you see them walking down the street, Happy Black History Month. It's just not gonna fly well. Just don't do it. Don't do it. I just want to put that out there. Last year, the racial uprisings had people in 2020 feeling like they wanted to do the most. So 2021 was awkward in February. Let's not do it in 2022. I think that the care about black people has definitely decreased. The performativeness of it has decreased since the racial uprisings. But some of y'all still, give a fuck. Thanks. But let's be clear. Do not, under any circumstances, tell a black person Happy Black History Month in February. Please don't do it. Don't play yourself. It's awkward. It's weird. It happened to me in 2021. And I was sitting there like, huh? And as you all remember, I wrote a really great op-ed in the Washington Post about my thoughts about Black History Month and how it was just being diluted by corporate interests. And it was a really great piece that really struck a chord with people. And I hope that it continues to push conversation, especially coming into this year. So, yeah. But no, I'm not surprised with all the craziness and stuff going on with Kanye. As far as Omicron goes, I see people are going back into the streets. Shameless plug, but not really shameless because it's just a plug. A lot of you all have been getting the shot card that I've been promoting and super excited about. Yes, my discount code is still active. Go to theshotcard.com. Simple, theshotcard.com. Get you one of your cards. It is a physical wallet-size vaccination card, basically. So you upload your vaccination card and automatically it generates a card for you that goes straight to the mail at a low price, under $20. And you can use my discount code to save big. It is Ernest Philly. That's it. ERNESTPHILLY. Ernest Philly, all caps, no spaces. Put it in a discount code, save money. Get your card within 3 to 5 days. If you live in the Philadelphia area, it might come faster. That's my shameless plug. Again, get the card. It's lovely. It's fabulous. And you all have been seeing me go out. And every time I go out, I show y'all my card. All you got to do is show the vaccination card. And you're in there. It's legit. Your QR code pulls up the actual card. So you can check it out in your physical card. So on your cell phone, you can take your cell phone and then you can use the scanner thing on your cell phone to get the QR code off of the actual card, and it shows the physical image if people want to see the real image of the card as your proof of vaccination. So either way, it works for you. But most places have never asked to see the QR code or see the real image. Once I show them that physical card with my name, my date of birth, and that information aligned with my ID to show that it's real and it's me, I've got it in without any problems. That card is legit. You better get it, okay? Thug it out. So, I say all that to get to this topic because it's the hot topic, and I have my own little confession to make. All right, so I saw the Janet Jackson 2-night special, Lifetime A&E. It came out. I saw it. I saw all 4 episodes. Part 1 was Friday night. It was episodes 1 and 2. Part 2 was Saturday night, episodes 3 and 4. So I have some thoughts. I have a lot of thoughts. I'm just going to start off by saying I give it a B-. And I'm being very generous by giving it a B-. But I'll give it a B-. I thought that the first half of the show. The first half of the documentary, the first 2 episodes, I thought was really good. I thought it was laying down the foundation to how Janet established her own identity and craft. We find out about Joe Jackson. We knew Joe Jackson was abusive, but they find their own way of discussing it. They humanized Joe in a way that I thought was super generous, but it kind of reminds me of how I felt about King Richard when the Williams sisters really, framed their father in a good light in the film, and they had a role in that, right? And people felt like there was some sanitizing of him. But I also felt like, this is how they saw their father, and they have the right to see their father the way they want to see him, or how they might reflect on him now in their adulthood. It's complicated. And so I wasn't really around the bandwagon of people really getting upset about King Richard, because I felt like that's how they saw their father. That's how they wanted to tell that story. We could all disagree about how we feel about it individually, but the liberty and agency of them to tell that story was something bold. So hats off to the Serena Williams sisters for that. And I also thought for Janet, I get it. Her relationship with her father is very different from probably how Michael's relationship with the father was. And so I definitely understood that. But their relationship was complicated. And I saw some parallels, right? She fired her father before she did Control. Because the first 2 albums she did were duds. The first album, self-titled, was called Janet Jackson. That album debuted at number 146 on the Billboard charts. I was whoa, it was not good, okay? Her second album, they didn't even talk about it like that. But then she gets with Terry Lewis and Jimmy Jam, and then she has Control, which is the album that got nominated for Album of the Year. It was her breakthrough album. She wins Billboard Awards and American Music Awards. I mean, she kills it. And that album is what is the album we know. It kind of reminds me of like Rihanna, right? I think of Rihanna sometimes, who recently said that when asked that she get it, when asked about that new album, she says that she get it while fans are like that, and she wants it too. Well, then go in the studio and make it. But I digress. Rihanna, to me, her first album in my head is Good Girl Gone Bad. It is not Music of the Sun. It is not A Girl Like Me. I feel like Good Girl Gone Bad is the first Rihanna album. And anybody can disagree with me on that. I'm not saying she didn't have hits in the first 2 albums. I love SOS. I like Hey Mr. DJ. And Unfaithful was cute too. But I personally feel like her real, the Rihanna that we know as the artist, I feel like it started with Good Girl Gone Bad. I think Umbrella, to me, is the debut single, right? The same way that fans don't acknowledge Work It Out by Beyonce. They think about Crazy in Love, even though she did that song off of the Austin Powers soundtrack and she was trying to create her. But, Crazy in Love is Beyonce's real debut solo single, right? So we'll just let it be that, right? I feel the same way. But Control is the 3rd album, and that's the album where, Janet comes to her own. She talks about her competitiveness with her brother, because out of all the Jacksons, Janet was the reign supreme. People always say Michael's the king of pop and she's the queen of pop. That's how you describe it. They don't really talk about Madonna in that queen of pop conversation. It's debatable, but I would say, people called Janet the empress of pop. All of those are actually very, are real as well. But I can see Michael and Janet being king and queen, even though people do, say Madonna. I think Madonna deserves her own credit in her own way, but I can see the case for Janet. But what I thought was important, I said this on some tweets that went viral, is that Janet was never in competition with Madonna in the way that the rest of the media was trying to frame it. It's very clear that the conversations that Janet saw the standard in the industry as being Michael. And so she's like, that's her brother. But she was in a friendly competition in her mind where that she felt like, I want to have a stage like that because no one had a stage like Michael. So Janet was like, I need a stage like that. And she did. Rhythm Nation, was that moment for her. That second, but you know what I mean, the fourth album, but the second, right after Control, it's unstoppable. It's phenomenal. That tour is the highest grossing debut tour ever and still is to this day. Okay? That album made her the first woman to ever get the Grammy nomination for Producer of the Year. Like these are moments right here, y'all. This is epic right here. She only won 5 Grammys in her career, which I just was like, what? That's why I sometimes have to side eye Grammys. Because, see, your faves, Whitney, Mariah, Janet, even Celine Dion, they weren't getting Grammys like that. Because they were all competing. Music was more competitive back then. So the era that, the way that we look at artists now, Quincy Jones definitely got his fair share of Grammys. But, I feel like there was a turn. I feel like there was a turn in, after the 90s where more artists start to get more Grammys. Before the 2000s, a lot of our favorite artists were not getting Grammys like that because it was so competitive. Now, it's like Adele can just walk up and get 5 or 6 Grammys every time she's up for something because the music is so fucking mediocre that there's no real competition. Back in the 90s and the 80s, it was some competition. Now, Michael's Thriller got a lot of Grammys that night because it was fucking Thriller. It was the highest selling album of all time. It deserved all the Grammys. And it still didn't get all the Grammys. Fun fact. He was nominated in a lot of categories, but he still lost in some categories because that's how competitive music was. Today, you can predict the Grammys. We can all predict who's going to win album of the year now. We can all predict that next year Adele's going to probably sweep. Easy on Me is going to snatch, and the album 30 is going to snatch. We just already know that's going to happen before it happens because that's how whack music has gotten. There's some good musicians out there, but it wasn't like the good old days. And I was born in 91. I'm saying that as somebody who's going back and listening to this music. And I'm like, the girls really had it going on, and they could share. Right? We have variety, right? You had Madonna, Whitney, Janet, Celine Dion, Sarah McLachlan, Sinead. You had all these, Sheryl Crow. You had variety. Shania Twain. You had these people making music around the same time, and everybody was great. Everybody was doing their thing. There was so much variety. Now, it's like what? Taylor Swift, Olivia Rodrigo, Beyonce, Rihanna, if she comes back, couple of, rappers here and there, but it's about 4 or 5. But back in those days, it was just so many different artists coming from different places. Gwen Stefani had No Doubt. You just had so much variety. I really feel like there's just so much there. We've made artists richer than ever, but we've also have shrinking the pot. The pot is so much smaller of talent. We where are the TLCs of the, I just, look at me sound like an old geezer. I'm 30, I feel like it's shit, intellectually, not physically, but I feel it. I feel like, damn, I do remember the days when it was so much variety. And listen, everybody didn't have to have a 20-year-long career. It was, some people knew to sit down somewhere, right? Look, I'm going to put out some albums. I'm going to have a cute little, 5, 6 year run, 10-year run. I'm going to chill. And that was okay. Now there's this expectation that people are supposed to keep going and keep going. Listen, if the music just stopped coming out of you, people grew up, people got married, had babies, recognized they wasn't trying to be on the tours and stages anymore. They gave it up. They passed the baton. Now these people would just want to, I don't know, over it. But that's, a different era. But I say all this to say that Janet's career was nothing short but monumental. What was interesting though is that we find out a lot about her love life and her relationships. Janet was married 3 times, and 2 of those relationships were dealt with men who had substance abuse problems, drugs and all kind of shit. Control, okay? Renee seems to be a very pivotal part of her role. The second husband. The first husband just was cheating on her because she was young, playing games. He was messing with drugs. And then, he was a DeBarge. The DeBarge family, man, they went through some shit. Talented, but troubled. And they had some strong issues. So they talk about a lot in that documentary. I just was touched by her transition. I mean, Janet first hit a stage in 1976. She's been in the game for 46 years. Okay. She was in Vegas. She had David Bowie in her house, kicking it, Red Fox, Sammy Davis Jr. I mean, they was living an iconic life. I liked how they talked about Gary, Indiana, talked about segregation, moving to different parts of the country, being in white neighborhoods that still didn't want them there. That was really profound. I thought those were the best parts of the documentary, and her talking. But the second half of the night, which I thought was rushed, we go from 1990 to 2022 real quick. And I must say, there was some parts that really did not sit well with me. I'm going to keep it 100. So they talk a lot they get into the fact that Janet got impacted negatively by all of the controversy surrounding the molestation allegations against her brother, Michael Jackson. And, there was one that stood out to me was that she was supposed to get this major deal. She had one of the biggest record deals from Virgin of her career. They talk about Poetic Justice and how iconic that film was. Like Regina King was in it. Regina King, man, listen, y'all got her. She's a cinematic queen. Q-Tip was her lover in the film. Tupac was also in the film as her lover. There was a close connection, a bond between Janet and Tupac, but she was with Renee. I was like, ooh, Janet and Tupac had a thing? They could have had some chemistry. Interesting. Oh, yes, it was an interesting. I know Jada was somewhere looking mad. Will Smith was sitting there looking like, see. I mean, it was, look at me being messy. I say all to say that, interesting stuff. Sidebar about interesting facts. Catherine, Jackson. We talk about Joe Jackson a lot, but shout out to Catherine Jackson for making appearances in this documentary, but also designing the Jackson 5's costumes, which I did not know until this documentary. I was like, see, it's a legacy here, y'all. I see the pattern. Tina Knowles made costumes to Destiny's Child. Arguably not as good looking compared to what Catherine was doing, but we're not here to compare. I'm just here to say that the legacy of Black mothers in music is often diminished or erased. We talk a lot about Matthew Knowles, which he did play a role in Beyonce's career, and we talk about Joe Jackson, who definitely played a role in Janet's career, but there are so many parallels, right? Creative control, freedom, dating men are not attractive. Well, that's listen, that is subjective. Some people think Jay-Z's cute. He all right to me. I don't think he's as bad as people describe him, but like Janet with Jermaine Dupri, girl. Anyway, people date whoever they want to date. But I digress. They get into the Michael Jackson molestation allegations, which personally where I stand on it is I do believe something was going on over there in Neverland. There's just too much information that has come out since that I can't completely act like I am completely dumbfounded and absent-minded or that I'm completely. I think there was some smoke where there was some fire in that situation. I don't got to get into all the accusations. I'm not going to try to discredit any of the boys. All I know is that there was a Black boy who got a settlement and he was never again to be addressed throughout that. And they just kind of disappear. Janet talks a little bit about how the fact that the settlements made her brother look like he was guilty and he didn't fight it, but apparently he just wanted to be over it. There's just, family is going to stand for family. And I get it. And it's interesting because Janet kind of, there was that other speculation about did she have a baby by her ex-husband, DeBarge? Did she have a baby by him? Because there was rumors about this mystery baby. And she says it's not true. She says, for the record, she did not have a baby by him, and that was all rumors. And the weight that she had back then, she was taking birth control, and birth control makes you gain weight back in the day, and that's true. When I was growing up, I used to hear stories about birth control making young women gain weight. So she got a third child. I mean, not third child. She doesn't have a mystery child. Let me clarify. She only has one child, which is Esset, who she had, when she was 50. That's it. That's what she says. That's her story. That's her story. That's her truth. When it comes to Michael, she just says she doesn't believe it. That's her brother, and she stood by him. And family in those situations are going to want to believe the best about their family, and that makes so much sense. I just beg to differ because, I can't just ignore facts and cases and details and information that just didn't add up. Those depositions. I mean, there's a lot of information that supports that something was going on in Neverland. Is every single detail precise or pristine? Probably not. But something went down in Neverland that was not kosher. And I believe that. I believe some of those victims. I believe something happened. I just don't think that all of this is a mass conspiracy. I just don't believe that. And again, there's several of extensive reporting and articles and real thorough reporting that get into the case and those allegations that prove otherwise. But Janet is Janet, and Janet's going to stand by her family, and that makes sense. The Jackson family is a tight clan, or sort of. So what happened that was interesting about that period is that she said that she was talking a deal with Coca-Cola. That was going to be a massive deal. Her brother was involved with Pepsi, so that was his situation. But she was going to get into Coca-Cola. And the deal was looking good. Everything was looking right. Jenna was at her prime. And then the allegations came out by her brother. And then that completely derailed her success of getting that deal. She spent a great chunk of her career at that time dealing with his accusations. And it's so fucking unfair because if the tables was turned, this would have not happened to her. Women in trouble don't have their careers shadowed by men in that same way. Men often, it's just ridiculous that Janet, her situation played a role like that. It just was terrible. So she was having to deal with questions and, opportunities was being, by that. And she wanted to be by her brother's side. And they talk about the song that they did called Scream. And even though it was an iconic video for us, and we thought that they were having a time in their lives, and it was, they were, killing it and doing it, that's not how it went down. So when they got together to do the song, that was where they had the most connection. But then when it's time to do the video, it was a $7 million video, one of the most expensive music videos of all time. And the drama behind it was that, Michael was cold to her. Like, his team separated her from him. There was almost like this very competitive nature where they didn't want them in the same room. He was doing his thing. She was doing her thing. They couldn't even mesh. They didn't have that connection. And in many ways, at that time, Janet was more popular than Michael Jackson as far as, the image. And so she, working with him at that time, was helping him with his image repair in some regards. Like, let's be clear. He was not completely sanitized at that moment. So she came in and used her social capital to give him this opportunity. Like, their collaboration came in a time of controversy and pressure. It wasn't like when Michael was at his prime, he acted funny with her. The documentary said, and she said that the night he was getting his Grammys, or around the time he got his Grammys and success, they were in the room and it was this complete silence, and he just got up and left. That bond they had, they didn't have. And then they had distance for a while. And then, when he was at his wit's end, he wanted to work with her again because that made sense for his image repair. And she came through and gave him a hit song like Scream, and that helped a lot with the image. But at the same time, it's like, you did her like that, the video? Fans will say his team and all these people around him kept the distance. Okay. But there was a lot of distance at that point. He really stayed away from his family. She says the whole family supported him and everybody did. But I'm kind of like, we're just going to leave out. And it was interesting because I did peep her leave out LaToya where she was naming the sisters. I don't know about LaToya and Janet's situation. There seems to be something, it seems to be close between Randy and Tito. There seems to be a connection there. But we don't see the connection between LaToya. Or we see Rebe, we see the other girls, some of the other family members, but we don't really hear anything about LaToya. LaToya was no parts of this documentary. LaToya just seems to really be in her own world. I did see, well, I'm not going to make a mention about the noses. It doesn't matter. But what I will say is that LaToya seems to have a different perspective about some of that back then, but they don't talk about LaToya. We don't talk about Toya, no. We don't talk about Toya. Yes, I have been really into Encanto. Judge your friends, okay? Encanto it's grown on me. But I just really don't think they talk about LaToya that much. It was like no reference. She was not, they got Catherine, Mama Catherine, they got everybody else. No LaToya. And also, oh my goodness, somebody else was left out of the documentary in the family. And Jermaine. Where is Jermaine? Jermaine Jackson was nowhere to be found. Where was Jermaine? I had questions, but I said, you see the separations between who's the family, okay? There's a certain group of Jacksons. The Jackson family seem to be very united but divided. Seem to be some stuff going on. But the documentary, I felt like, helped fill in those gaps. But back to this. So I was taken aback by that because that was a shocker to me, that there was some real rift. And we got a sense of that. They jumped a lot of documentary. They got into Renee popping pills. Renee was trying to, get some money out of her. The breakup was nasty. I could see that. But they kind of just skipped over some stuff. I loved how they talked about control. I loved how they talked about Revelation. Janet period album, they kind of did something about that. But Velvet Road, they just they didn't really get into it that much about that album. I was like, would have liked to hear more about that one. All For You, they kind of, got into All For You. And, as it's come back and everything, Jermaine Dupri was in the mix. We get into that. First of all, they get into the Justin Timberlake Super Bowl thing, which I'm going to just put a little moment there before I get into how I felt about how that part went down. But what I will say about the Jermaine Dupri, well, no, let's talk about the Super Bowl real quick. So they just kind of talk about the controversy. Janet breezed right through that. I was heartbroken. And I'm going to tell you why. She just simply does this video thing on her cell phone. It's Miami in 2022. She's on some island. And she gives this statement that says, Justin and I, have moved on since we talk. And, we're moving on and we should all move forward. I was like, what the fuck is this statement? And why is it like you're just breezing through that like Justin didn't do anything? And then when she's talking about it in previous scenes, she's like, oh, I told Justin don't say anything because, it was all the pressure was on me and not to say anything. I was like, Janet, I remember the Oprah interview, Janet. You said that's not what friends do. I remember Justin not only not saying anything, but he did say something, Janet. He was talking shit. He was saying that's not the person he was. When I asked him for an apology in 2016, he said something different. So I was doing my digging to try to figure out what the fuck happened in this situation. And then I found it. Okay. In 2018, Justin Timberlake signed on to be represented by Janet Jackson's publicist. He's a part of the same publicist company as her, which is Sunshine Sachs, which is the same publishing company, a publicist company that represents Janet Jackson. Justin Timberlake signed to that publicist company, PR company, a firm or whatever, in 2018 during this documentary's filming. So I am going to say this. I think that team, and putting Justin there, probably helped bury the hatchet between the two of them. And that's why she's not going after him like she is. Because that team is also the same team, because they're her publicist, that was pushing and representing this documentary. So I feel like to some extent, when you got two clients on both opposite ends, how do you represent the clients as beefing against each other? So clearly there must have been a compromise or understanding between them for them to move forward. So that's why the documentary got taken down, got resolved in a certain way. You want to know how I fucking know? It's because I was actually taped for this documentary. Dun, dun, dun! Yes, I was filmed for this documentary. Okay? That guy, the British guy with the accent, he called me to New York last year, actually, and taped me for 2 hours in New York, to talk about the Justin Timberlake situation, to talk about Janet Appreciation Day, to talk about everything. I was filmed for this documentary. Yes, this is the second Janet documentary I was filmed in. For. Yes. And I watched it because I wanted to see if I was going to show up. And when I saw how they just kind of tightened that scene up, I said, oh, there we go. But yes, I was filmed for this Janet Jackson documentary. Okay, they brought me over. They flew me out. They brought me to there. I was filmed, signed consent forms. I was behind the black scene. And I was brought out. And when the documentary came out, I saw what direction they went in. I mean, from what I knew, a lot of people got interviewed for this documentary. A lot of people. And they were not included. To be honest with you, it was kind of disappointing because everybody who was included in it were just either super, super famous people or her really, really close team, which I respect her close team being in it. But I thought there was something missing in the fact that they did not have any journalists. They did not have any music cultural critics that gave voice to the documentary. Like, none of these people who was a part of those historical moments in Janet's career was actually featured in it. None of the fans. There was just something missing in this documentary that just, I felt like, took the soul out. Now, the first half of the documentary, I could understand why some of it was like that because it was about her family life. But this second half, I was just like, what the fuck? There are so many great people that I know they interviewed and I know could have added some thoughts and some commentary, and everybody was just Hollywood people, friends, sycophants. And I think that's the kind of annoying part about, I do think there's a beauty in people being a part of their own documentaries. But I also feel like there is a little bit of narrative switching and crafting that kind of is deceptive. And I'm talking as a journalist because I feel like, is it the truth that we're supposed to go after or just about how you feel? And so I felt like it was a documentary of Janet's feelings about these issues rather than a documentary of what actually went the fuck down. And to some extent, that's her story, right? But I felt like there were more questions left than answers. So, for example, okay, Jermaine Dupri was in her life. There was some issues with them. They did talk about why they broke up. That was kind of cool. He was kind of fucked up, though, because he was like, oh, I was a man, and, because of I was dating Janet, more women found me attractive, and I felt some of my vices. Are you fucking serious? So the ugly boy, okay, the geeky dude, the non-attractive dude, who basically, the translation, the non-attractive guy who finally dated one of the sexiest women in the world, basically, looked in the mirror and everybody wanted him and he didn't know how to act. But we've seen this happen with several of famous women in Hollywood. Beyonce, we saw this with Beyonce. We saw this with J-Lo. We've seen this with a lot of women who are beautiful. Attraction, I mean, at the girl, eat that chicken sandwich. Eat whatever you want to eat. Like, stop giving, because that's the standard. Everybody thinking, if I look like this, I'm going to get a man that's going to be faithful to me. No. Men are faithful to you based on if they do the work on themselves. A man who does not do the work on himself is not a man that's going to be faithful to you. Okay? Newsflash. It's not about you. It's about him. A person that cheats has a personal problem. It's not your fault that he's cheating. It's his fucking fault. He needs to work on himself. So when I hear people say things like, I need to do things to myself to get this person to do this. No, it's we got to work on ourselves as people. My man is with me because he's got himself together and he wants to be with me, and vice versa. Why do we always do this on social media where we act shocked that unattractive men are cheating on women that look gorgeous? Because it's never about attraction, you shallow fucks. It's about people having personal problems with famed ego. Okay, my rant is over on that. But I just want to be clear, because we always have this debate on social media every single time a beautiful woman gets cheated on by a dude that we don't think is deserving. Just saying. But at least he wasn't hooked on drugs, because that's what Janet said. Janet said he didn't have a problem with drugs. And so, based on her timeline, she was doing pretty good. Jermaine had another addiction, but it was not drugs. So, there's something to be said for that, I suppose. Fun fact, him and Usher produced Confessions. And he, of course, produced Mariah Carey's Emancipation album. I wonder, now looking in retrospect with the Usher album, two cheaters sat together and poured their heart and soul into an album that could have had Future in it if it was... Could you imagine if Future was in the Confessions album? That would have been iconic. But no, it's still an iconic album, which is why I was thinking the other day why people are even comparing Usher to Chris Brown. But we'll get to Chris Brown in a minute. So all I'm saying is that I think that is... When I heard about this, I thought this was epic, that detail. But the documentary got really rushed really fast. We skip, we go from 2009 to 2017 real quick. She announces she's got a baby in 2016. We don't even talk about the baby's father, the husband, because she was married and she's not married anymore. We don't talk about the third husband, I think he was a billionaire or whatever. I don't remember, but they don't even talk about him. They just talk about the baby. They just said, we're just going to skip over that part. We're just going to talk about her having a baby, getting into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, which she deserved, long overdue. And they just kind of moved on. They just, and next thing you know, we're thanking her. We're hearing about a new album coming out, Black Diamond. She teases her song in a trailer. And that's it. The end. That's over. Okay, bye. It went really fast at the end. And I just felt like, eh. And also, let's keep it 100. That documentary was not no 4 hours. They had so many fucking commercials. I feel like the real documentary, the whole documentary total, is probably 2.5 hours at best. I feel like every time they was making a point, boom, Janet Jackson, commercial break. I feel like the commercial break was longer than the time that they actually had the segments. I was trying to time it. I was like, commercials. But I get it. Janet had to Lifetime had to cough up a big stack for Janet. But I was like, them commercials, okay? And all that cross-promotion. K. Michelle, this single black female movie coming out, which I probably low-key want to see next week. I don't know. We'll see. But it sounds like it's interesting. 2 black women, plus-size black women that look similar. I don't know what's going on there. But it looks good. It looks like it's ratchet good. It's not great. I don't think it's going to get nominated for an Emmy. But I do find it interesting. And K. Michelle's in it with a cameo, which is interesting. But then K. Michelle has another show on Lifetime. Talk about killer bodies, and that seems interesting. I saw the sneak peek episode after the Janet doc, the first night, and it was too much, y'all. They're showing graphic, listen, anybody trying to do a BBW or whatever that processor shit, please watch this, because if you ever thought about getting anything like that, this might make you think otherwise, because I saw some horror they're really doing some horror stories, and K. Michelle was talking about her body experience, and it was wild. So I'm proud of her for stepping out and speaking out about those experiences. But no, the Janet doc, I just felt like, let's be clear, it's none of our business. We're not entitled to any of this information. But I just felt, that in some ways it was like she wanted to tie up some loose strings with a lot of the stuff that was said. And I guess she's trying to go into a second, new album and a new rollout. So I feel like she's really trying to put a lot of work into the new album, and trying to get away some of these clouds that's been over it. So I do appreciate some of that. But I do feel like it was really rushed towards the end. And I really felt like, I don't know. I don't think she's ever going to be fully comfortable to tell more than what she gave us. And, you know, we're not entitled to it. That's, you know, that's one thing you have to recognize. But at the same time, I was like, girl, you know, we didn't even talk about 20 by O. I guess we're just going to decide that's a flop album. We didn't talk about Discipline. We didn't really talk about Demita Joe that much. We didn't talk about Unbreakable. I mean, it just kind of just skipped over about a fourth of her discography, or 50% of her discography to a certain extent. They just kind of just skipped over that, and it just kind of was like Hall of Fame. And I loved how the first half took that time to cook that stuff out. Some interesting stuff. But I will say that I was personally stung by the way that the Justin Timberlake thing was discussed, because they spent so much time in the advertising gassing it up, only for it to be like about 5 or 8 minutes discussed, and it was the most shallow. You know, it was just was so underwhelming. But I guess she's at a point in her life where she's just like, she wants to move on with it, and that's fine. But let's not be a historical Miss Jackson. So that was that. Now, other things that has come in the news, because I want to make sure I don't forget certain things. So I guess speaking of Michael Jackson's and inspirations and stuff, Chris Brown is in the news again, allegedly for raping a woman. He's got a lawsuit that's $20 million. Someone is suing him allegedly for a woman who's, I guess, in medical school, claims that she raped him, claims that he raped her on I guess in a yacht or a boat, that she felt like she was drugged and she was taken advantage of. She took a Plan B pill after communication with him, and now she's suing. I'm not going to weigh in on the situation and all of that. All I got to say is this. This is not the first time Chris Brown has been accused of rape and abuse. I don't know what to tell Chris Brown other than just go away. Just go away. Just get out the industry, man. Get out the industry. I mean, it's like either him or Trey Songz. Both of them dudes always in some shit. Like every month, it's, like I said, where there's smoke, there's fire. And I just keep saying that there's just always a lot of smoke around these dudes, and in some cases there's real burns and fires. But like at some point, it's like, what the fuck are y'all doing? And it's clear that Chris Brown doesn't have a good team around him or good people around him. Doesn't seem like he wants to. How many chances does this motherfucker get? I mean, it's like every time I turn around, he gets it. It's always, and his fans are delusional. Like, don't even read the stuff the fans say. But it's just like, Fame just did a number on him. It just did. Fame did a number on him. And the other day, I was listening to Usher sing Climax acoustic. And I was sitting like, first of all, a Climax by Usher is one of my favorite songs from him. Like, it is so good. I'm not even going to try to sing that song. Those vocals, I'm not even going to insult that man. Okay? But Usher, oh my God. Like, go listen to Climax. The original version, this Climax won a Grammy, by the way. Later years in his career, at a time where most people thought Usher didn't have it. Climax is a beautiful song. It's a beautiful breakup song. It is a beautiful song. I didn't realize how good it is. And I listened to it when it first came out, but recently I'm just like, this is, oh my goodness. I just need you one more time. I'm just like, oh, so good. So good. The production is perfection. That's a song. That's a hit. Climax, justice for Climax. We should have made Climax number 1 in the charts. I looked on YouTube at him perform the song at the BET Awards, and I was like, this man, all the techno and all the stuff he do, them vocals. Usher could sing. He could sing and dance. He could actually sing. Just saying. Climax is, and he could dance. A lot of people act like there's only one person out here in these streets that can sing and dance. And I have to tell them, Usher can do both too, y'all. Don't sleep on Usher. But no, Usher is just, yeah. And I'm just saying to myself, I've never heard a Chris Brown song that made me feel that way. He's had songs that feel good, but I've never heard a Chris Brown song that made me feel like that. I don't even know if I've ever heard a Chris Brown album that's made me feel like the way Confessions made me feel. And the fact that they continue to give them comparisons is just baffling. I'm just going to put that out there. So, I've been waiting for this moment because my class, okay, which I am giving a pop quiz to next week, they got a pop quiz. Some of them might be listening to the show because some of my class, my students, I have students, y'all. But yeah, we were having a conversation in class, and we were talking about journalists and things. Well, you all heard it. Tasha K is going to now have to fork up $4 million. She lost, okay, in her case to Cardi B. Cardi B sued her for defamation, and now Tasha K has been found guilty. The jury agrees with Cardi, and now she has to call for $4 million damages, over $4 million damages. Tasha K is a rich woman, from what I hear. She's got some folks around, some rich friends. So it doesn't seem like it's going to be hard for her to pay the bill, but it shoots at her credibility, and it's a major milestone. And there is some speculation that other people might be suing her too. But this is a big deal. Cardi didn't do this because Cardi needed the money. Cardi did this to send a message loud and clear. And it's embarrassing for her. I feel like who's ever a Tasha K fan at this point that want to get wine with her or unwiners or whatever she calls it, y'all understand that you all are supporting a woman that's literally putting out misinformation on purpose. Like she's literally out here putting out stuff that's just not true. Like she accused Cardi B of having herpes, being a prostitute, all kind of crazy rumors. And none of that shit was okay. And Cardi claims it made her, put her through emotional distress, that she was suicidal, and it created problems in her relationship. This is crazy. Like, at what point do you as an artist, as a person, listen, this is for me the number one example that I use now to tell people that this is the difference between a blogger and a journalist. Because bloggers, and not every quote unquote blog, but fuck that. This is the same stuff that was going on with B. Scott, right? These bloggers are not confined to the same game, right? To the same rules and standards that journalists are. They're just out here regurgitating information. They're just out here putting out gossip. They're just out here putting their little spin in the news that they see from other sources. And a lot of times that spin goes too fucking far because they're trying so hard to have a unique take that they begin to either sensationalize the information or exaggerate it. And that's when you get into murky territory where you start getting a lawsuit up your ass. So this Tasha K situation, I'm sick of y'all. This should be the example of you all to use this information, to use this case as a case study for you all to understand that when bloggers are out here doing the stupid stuff they are, stop talking about dumb words like, I think journalists be objective. Shut that shit the fuck up. Objectivity is not a word we use in journalism anymore. You sound dumb. You don't sound like you know what you're talking about. You're arguing and expecting something out of bloggers that you should be expecting from journalists. And so you're like acting like, well, where's your journalistic integrity? They're not a fucking journalist. That's like talking to an Instagram therapist and saying, where is your respect for all the rules, right? Where's your respect for people's confidentiality? Where's your respect for people's, other rules and violations, like protecting the health of people? Where's that consideration? I tell people that there's always this, expectation that people should do that protects people. That where's those expectations? The hypocrisy is interesting to me. So I was thinking about how in journalism, there's been a lot of people in the world, like, a perfect example. HIPAA. So there'll be people who will see pseudo therapists and doctors on Instagram, and let's be clear, not doctors or wannabe therapists or health experts, right? That are not actually practitioners in real health. And they'll see them disclose information about people they work on. They'll say, well, where's your health standards? Well, how are you not following HIPAA, which is HIPAA, which is the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act of 1996, right? It's a federal law that requires the creation of national standards to protect people's sensitive health information of patients, right? from being disclosed without the patient's consent or knowledge. That is HIPAA. There'll be people online that's telling Instagram, quote unquote, health experts, oh, where's your standards? Why are you violating HIPAA? They're not certified. They're not real. Stop treating them like they're your peers when they're people that want to peer into your information and business. We got to know the difference. And people think that it's elitism to say this. No, it's not elitism. Because sometimes it's time to tell people the truth is. This is not, have it your way, right? Where you could just wake up one day and say, I'm going to be a journalist. And I tell you, you're not a journalist, right? You don't practice those standards. You have not gotten the understanding. You're not practicing this, right? You're not a journalist. And then you get in your feelings. Because you're like, how dare you tell me I'm something I'm not? Because you're not practicing. See, this is a standard. There are rules to journalism. There's practices, right? And if you're not doing those things, you're not doing journalism. It's not about whether you have a degree or you work for a mainstream publication. There are practices in journalism. For example, you're supposed to state facts. You're supposed to vet your information. You're supposed to fact check your information. You're supposed to have multiple sources. You're supposed to have credible sources. You're supposed to be able to back the things that you're saying with credible sources and reliable information. You're supposed to do research. That is what journalists do. If you're not doing those things, you're not practicing journalism. Not trying to sound like a snob. It's just a fact. It's like if a person said they're a baker, but they don't heat anything. You're not a fucking baker. A baker heats something. They put something in the oven, and what do? It bakes. You can't call yourself a baker if you're not using dough or you're not putting anything to heat and rise. That's not baking. You might be cooking, but you're not fucking baking. That's just how it works. It does. Right? Like that's just real. You're not a lawyer unless you actually practice law. And in order to be able to practice law, you have to have a license. You have to have a license. If you don't have a license to practice law, you're not a lawyer. Period. Doctors. If you're a doctor, like a physical health doctor, you have to have a license. You have to go through rigorous training. If you don't do those things, then you're not a health practitioner or a doctor. A therapist, those things have to be certified. You have to do them. If you say you're a child psychologist, you have to have a degree in that. You just can't walk around saying, I know kids, I'm a child therapist. There are things that you just have to do. But I think that we live in a society where a man named Donald Trump, with no formal governance or any type of real actual standards, became the president of the United States. And because laws allowed that to happen, people think they can, if Donald Trump can be the president, why can't I be whatever I want to be? It doesn't work that way. And so that's the issue when we're talking about occupations. We're not talking about gender identity. That is not the same, because I know there's some hoteps that might say, but what about gender identity? That's not how that fucking works. Nice try, do research. Gender dysphoria is a real thing. We're not talking about that. We're talking about actual occupations and trades. You heard that snap there? Because I know some of y'all will try it in these comments. I know there's a sector of people who will listen and try it. I saw that Dr. Phil episode that just happened, and I was disheartened. It was that idiot Matt Walsh who, we got into it on Twitter this week. If you saw the tweets between us, he's a jerk. He was on there arguing with two non-binary individuals who were sharing their experience of gender and identity and gender expression, and was really educating Dr. Phil's audience and the public about pronouns and all of these important aspects, and making the distinction between gender expression, and gender identity. And this is very important because people don't know the difference between those three, right? That there is gender identity, gender expression, and sexual orientation. I'm sorry, the three. Sexual orientation, gender identity, and gender expression. So gender expression is how one chooses to express their gender. Feminine, masculine, something in between, right? That's expression. So somebody can look at somebody and say that, their expression is feminine. Let's be clear. Gender expression, sexual orientation, and gender identity are not mutually exclusive. They do not always connect. They are not always combined. So let me explain this because I want to educate you all, because there are some new listeners. So let's see a man, right? You might see a man and you might feel like his gender expression is feminine. Okay, whatever. Whatever femininity means to you. But you see that. That does not automatically mean that that individual is trying to be a woman, right? Or is a woman, right? If you see a man or a person that presents as a man that is presenting their gender, expressing themselves in a feminine manner, you can't automatically gender them and say, oh, that person wants to be a woman. Or that person is trying to be a woman, because you could be wrong. The other thing is that you can't automatically assume that person's sexual orientation. I know a lot of you all out here try to do that. I see y'all. And will say, well, that man's a little feminine, so I think he's gay because of that. No, because sexual orientation is about who you're sexually attracted to. That does not automatically mean that person is sexually attracted to the opposite sex based on how they express their gender. And these are the mistakes that people make. So I'll give you some examples. People look at me and they'll say, Ernest, you're feminine in a certain way, or your mannerisms or the way you talk. Okay, cool. And what about it, bitch? Now, to be honest, people can say that. That's fair. Now, am I gay? Am I gay? Yes, I'm gay. Is that because of that? No, because I'm gay because I like men. My gender expression has nothing to do with my taste and gender attraction. I just like men. I'll give you an example. Because I guess my mannerisms in some cases could be considered feminine to some people. In some cases, that doesn't mean I want to be a woman. I have no interest in being a woman. I am a man. I identify as a man. My pronouns is he, him. See what I'm saying here? I'll give you another example. My husband is not feminine. I guess people don't read his mannerisms or his presentation as feminine. It's me. Like, people think having your nails polished and things of that nature is feminine. Okay, cool, whatever. I don't care. I'm not offended by people, how they look at my gender expression. His gender expression is not like that. He doesn't have his his fingernails or whatever painted. He, doesn't have certain expressions that people will read as feminine. People will read him as masculine. However, he's gay. He likes men. He is not attracted to a woman. He's never had a girlfriend. I've actually had a girlfriend. He hasn't. We're different, but we're still the same. So we both have the same sexual orientation. We both have the same gender identity, but we don't have the same gender expression. That's the difference here. And I really appreciate that conversation being had on Dr. Phil, even though Matt Welsh, with his ignorant ass, was trying to say otherwise. Now, here's the issue I did have with Dr. Phil. I appreciate the two non-binary people having this conversation on Dr. Phil. What I did appreciate is that I don't like that Dr. Phil and a lot of mainstream media, as a GLAAD Award nominee myself, I don't appreciate that they always frame it as a both sides. There is no both sides in a conversation about people who are choosing to identify themselves properly. When you try to create a both side-isms to a conversation about how people is trying to express their humanity, then you act as though it's an option for people to choose whether or not they have to respect that person's humanity. That's just the bottom line. Like, I am for people using pronouns because it's a sign of respect. Dr. Phil act like that was such a hard thing to do. We use pronouns and references and titles every day for people. Dr. Phil has a doctorate, and he wants us to refer to him as Dr. Phil. What if I said, Dr. Phil, just because you want us to use doctor doesn't mean we have to? He'll be offended, right? It's the same way I walk in the classroom and I tell my students, out of respect, you don't call me Ernest, you call me Professor Owens. That's a sign of respect. If I meet someone and they tell me their pronouns is they and them, I'm going to refer to them as they. See what I did there? That's what I'm going to do. That's respecting people's pronouns. So the moment you decide not to use this, listen, what was very clear there is that you can make mistakes, right? But you just pick yourself up and correct yourself. That's all. No one's saying that you got to automatically know. But once you're corrected, fucking get it right. Ain't nothing wrong with that. To actively choose. People out here, I don't know nothing about this pronoun stuff. How about this? When you walk up to a person, you meet a person, and you go into conversation, and the person says to you, "Hi, my name is Christina, and my pronouns are they and them." The moment you hear that, make it your goal to just call them by their pronouns. And if you mess up, guess what? You say, "I'm so sorry. I apologize." But you got to make sure you get the fuck right, because that's how it is when you see somebody. If you see somebody, a professor, you say Dr. So-and-so, you correct it. If you mess up the first time, like I remember sometimes I used to go to school and I used to always do Mr. and Miss. I would say, "Oh, hi, Miss So-and-so. Hi, Miss." And they were like, "I'm doctor." I'm like, "Oh, my bad." They're doctor. So it took me some time my freshman year when I was in college. I used to call everybody Mr. and Miss. But then I realized that, for women specifically, they, or even men, I mean, they really were like, look, I'm doctor something. Refer to me as doctor. And then that's when I started to say, okay, when I saw the PhD in their names, I would always automatically say doctor unless I was told otherwise. That was my thing. What I do now in my email, and this is a good thing to start practicing, y'all, is in your email signatures, put he, him, they, them, she, her, or whatever your pronouns are. All of my stuff on social media, my pronouns are there. And even though my pronouns are he and him, and some of y'all can look at me and assume that's what my pronouns are, and that's how it reads, it's a way for you to not assume other people. Because there are people in this world that looks exactly like me, and their pronouns are they and them. And so I just think we should never assume what people's pronouns are. And if people's pronouns are different, just simply refer to them as differently. Why does it take you to have an encyclopedia about somebody's entire life or backstory in order for you to get some common decency, respect for them? I just think that's bullshit. We spend so much time trying to act like we need to know every aspect about people to respect them. You do not. I remember this same logic with white people who act like they could not call us niggas. They would call us niggers. And acting like they didn't know another way to call us. Or Jewish people, calling them all kind of names, Heimies and insults, or Latinx people, calling them terms and things that were not appropriate. There was all kind of slurs that was used back in the day. Or like I see kids in Philly, young kids who are growing up in Philly, that was referring to Asians as chinks because that was the stores they were called. They were like, oh, the chinks, the this, the this. And I had to correct them, like, that's not what you say, that's inappropriate. But they didn't know that because they heard their parents saying that. They would say, oh, I'm going to go to the Chinks and get a cheesesteak. Huh? I was like, what is that? You do not call them that. That is inappropriate. You are going to the convenience store. But you have to educate people, that are young. I have patience for young people. Adults, it's like, you know better. There's people that walk around. I mean, there was a time people just used the word faggot, just proficiently. When I was teaching at West Philly High, they would say those words like that was an acceptable term to refer to a gay person. And this was in the early 2010s. And I was like, wait a minute, you're just using this word just like it's okay? Like, no, we don't use that. No, we don't refer to gay people as faggots. That's just not okay. You have to stop it. Period. You just stop. So Matt Walsh gets up there and he's like, people just can't wake up and have their own pronouns, or whatever. And he makes a comparison between pronouns and adjectives. He would say something like, oh, I'm handsome and attractive, but I can't make everybody describe me as handsome and attractive. Interesting. Because you're definitely not handsome and attractive. You're an asshole. That's your adjective. That's your noun. You're an asshole. You're an asshole. You're an idiot. That's your noun. People are choosing to be mean. People are choosing violence. People are choosing to not get it. It's not about not understanding. It's just people don't want to. People want to force a belief on other people that does not match with theirs. Common respect. Don't say to me you don't understand pronouns. Just say you don't give a fuck if that's who you are. And look in the mirror and know your history and know there was a time in our communities, wherever you're from, where people thought it was okay to refer to women as other words, or refer to other people, or gay people, or Asian people, or Jewish people, or Muslim people, that people thought it was okay to use other terms to describe them, Italian and Irish. You know this. So let's stop acting like we don't know how to use pronouns and how to describe people properly. We do it every day. We say, oh, that's Deacon so-and-so, the honorable state representative. We do this all, we shake hands. We know how to be decent people. So for people to sit up here and act like all of a sudden, when we get to queer people or non-binary people, that all of a sudden we don't know how to act, that's a choice. It's not confusion. It's not messing people up. This is the same rhetoric they use in justifying how to exterminate people, how to not integrate schools, because lo and behold, integrating schools was going to teach our kids about race. They're saying it now about critical race theory. They act like teaching kids about race is somehow something that they're going to teach their kids in their household. What the fuck sense? What does that even make sense? I don't know if I want my kids knowing about race. That's something I should talk to my kids about myself. How? How are you going to teach your kid about race? Do you know anything about race? What do you know about race? Why is race something that you want to teach your child about privately in your house? They seriously think that talking to kids about respecting people's different pronouns is literally showing them a video of pornography. Like, stop it. You're ignorant. You're ignorant. And you all really some of y'all sit up here and really think that's okay. And it's time for people like me to tell you all to knock it off. Because just because my pronouns are not they and them does not mean that I co-sign you all thinking that I'm the okay gay person or the specialty queer because I'm so much more normal. You can't compare me to other people. You can't keep conflating gender identity, gender expression and sexual orientation as the same. There's people out here saying, man, I wish people were just gay. Not everybody trans and this, that, and that. There's always been transgender people. There's always been gay people. There's always been us. You just didn't want to see us. You didn't want us on TV. You did everything to quote unquote cancel us. Everybody be like, I don't like cancel culture. Oh, y'all love cancel culture. That's why I write a book about it called The Case for Cancel Culture. Because everybody loves canceling people. It's ingrained in your DNA. For better and for worse. So, there is some interesting things that's been going on in politics this week. And I have to say that you all have been hitting me up about it. Now y'all excited about I got y'all excited. Which you should be, because this is an important time. What a time to be alive. So, it's the end of January. So for those who've been following the podcast, you all know this season that this weekend was a big weekend. The Pennsylvania Democratic Committee got together to make endorsements, and something major happened. So remember I told you that I predicted that Conor Lamb was going to get backed by the party. Well, that did not happen. He did not have 2/3 of the voting threshold to get the endorsement. He did, however, get the highest number of votes. He got 149 votes out of delegates. There were like 200 something delegates. He got 149 votes. And there were like 200 something delegates there. He didn't have enough over the threshold. But he did have the most. Fetterman came after him at around 62. And then Malcolm came after both of them with 49. I'm going to look at the exact numbers because I don't want to mess up. Because this is very important, this data. So let me get into this data real quick. So, okay, let me back up. There was 267 votes that were casted. Conor Lamb had 159 votes. Fetterman had 64 votes. Malcolm Kenyatta had 42 votes. And there were 2 abstentions. The threshold for endorsements was 176. So in order to get the endorsement, you have to have 176 votes in order to get it. 176 votes. Conor Lamb had 159. So he was short. Fetterman had 64 and Kenyatta has 42. So this is a pretty big damn deal. Because a lot of people had a lot of different thoughts about this. And I must say that I'm not completely shook by this information, to be honest. I got to keep it 100. I'm not completely shocked, but it did confirm some things. So let me just also get this out the way. Austin Davis and Josh Shapiro both got nominated for governor. Brian Sims got smoked. Brian Sims didn't get enough delegates. I think they said Brian Sims got around 60 or something like that, but Austin had about 180 or 200. I think he just blew Malcolm out the water. I think Malcolm had 80 and he had about 160. Like he had nearly double the amount that Malcolm had in delegate votes. But he blew he blew Brian Sims out the water. Austin Davis, who was the black man that's going for lieutenant governor, who was endorsed by Josh Shapiro for governor. So governor candidate nominee, which was the only governor, the Democratic person going for governor in the Democratic Party was Josh Shapiro. Got endorsed by the party. We all knew that was coming. No surprise there. Austin Davis, as projected, did get endorsed by the party, so he got endorsed. So it's basically them two going to the top. Brian Sims is aced out. I think that Brian Sims should just drop out the race. But I think Brian might foolishly still try to go for lieutenant governor, but it's clear he's going to get smoked. But he didn't get the endorsement by the party. It looks like the party's going full on with Shapiro and Davis on the ticket, and I think they're going to ace it out and win the primary. That's my opinion. However, this Conor Lamb, Malcolm Kenyatta, Fetterman situation is messy. For starters, I actually like the messiness of this. I do like the messiness of this. Because in a way, this is going to help Fetterman. The winner of this is Fetterman. Everyone thinks it's Conor Lamb. It's not Conor Lamb. I'm going to tell you why, because you all been listening to Ernestly speaking. Y'all been following my predictions. There's some interesting things that come out of these numbers. For starters, I didn't expect that Fetterman was going to even get many delegates to just come out from the party and back him, because I just really thought that the Democratic establishment was really going to make this a Conor Lamb day, and that Malcolm was going to still get some delegate support, but he wasn't going to get that many, right? I didn't expect Fetterman to get as many. I didn't think Fetterman was still going to have people out there trying to get delegates for him. I think the goal here for both Malcolm and Fetterman was that I think not together, but I think they both said to themselves, what if they can do so well that they can fuck up Conor Lamb getting this endorsement from the party? That would be juicy. And that's what happened. I think Malcolm realized he wasn't going to get the endorsement, but I think Malcolm's mentality was, I need to get enough to not make this an open, make the party back Lamb. Because if the party backed Lamb, Malcolm was going to be completely out. Malcolm was going to be completely out the race. However, what the data does show me is that Lamb had more endorsements. He had nearly 4 times the amount of endorsements that Kenyatta had. He had twice as many as Lamb. And he had more than both of them combined, and then some change. So Lamb did sweep them out for the endorsements. Fetterman wasn't bothered, because at the end of the day, Fetterman knew the establishment was not for him. But Fetterman had enough to help fuck up Lamb's shots with the support of Kenyatta's delegate race. So they helped to make this race not go to the party endorsement, which means that without the party backing a candidate outright, it makes it an open primary, which means that now Fetterman is going to remain as the front runner. That benefits Fetterman, y'all. That is what Fetterman wanted. Fetterman did not want the delegates to define the public. Because if you look at the polls, you look at the money, that's Fetterman. The party was going to go against what the people, what it looks like money-wise, what the people wanted for Fetterman. So now Fetterman was like, if it's not going to be me, it's not going to be anybody. So Fetterman wins, in my mind, in this debacle. He's the one who gets the win. Because what he did not want is there to be, it looked like a Conor Lamb Fetterman race. It's going to be them at the polls. I believe that when it's all said and done, I think Fetterman will win. I think Conor Lamb will be second. However, I don't think he wanted the publicity to look like that. So there are some articles running. I read in the HuffPost a piece that was saying that in spite of Lamb's thing, it shows that delegates want a safer pick. I'm not surprised by that, y'all. I know that the establishment wants a safer pick. What we are seeing in the polls and the data is that the people really want Fetterman. And that's just the fact. Malcolm is holding on because Malcolm has not been given a pink slip. I thought that perhaps if there was an endorsement made by Conor Lamb, that would have spelled trouble for Malcolm. Malcolm would have had to get out the race. Now Malcolm has an excuse to stay. He's going to stay until he runs out of money, y'all. It is terrible, but we love a good drama. We love a good drama. We do. We love the drama, y'all. We love the mess. So this idiot's going to keep going to the very end. And I think that this is going to actually spell trouble for him. I think the establishment is going to come from Malcolm. Because now Malcolm is being exactly who I thought he was going to be in this race, which I think he's going to be the Elizabeth Warren in this race, right? Where he's going to take some votes away from some people. He's going to hurt other people. He's hurting Conor Lamb, which the establishment liked Malcolm. Malcolm was the establishment. And he kisses ass to the establishment. Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden, you know the rest. He's now fucking with them because he is bitter that he was not going to get their support. So now he's antagonizing any support for Connor. But here's the issue. Antagonizing momentum for Connor is doing nothing to build your momentum. So you're clearly running to lose. You're clearly wanting to sabotage Connor. And you're clearly trying to give Fetterman the advantage, which quite frankly, I'm happy for. Because I'm personally skewing to Fetterman in this situation. But for other people in the establishment within the party who want someone safer, Malcolm is literally bringing the biscuits for Fetterman. He's actually helping Fetterman out. But there's going to be a cost to be paid. People think and predict that in 2 years, Malcolm will run for Congress and that Dwight Evans will retire. That is the speculation. What I've learned in all these years in politics is the way that ever since 2016, you can't predict shit anymore. You don't know what's going to happen in the next several years. We can't predict what's going to happen, y'all. Give it up. Let it fly. For example, the Grammys. We thought the Grammys was going to be in February. I was excited. Or the end of January. It was supposed to be tomorrow, the 30th. Whoop, not happening now. It's going to be in March. You can't predict shit in 2022. Nothing's predictable. I mean, then you're saying, well, Ernest, why are you predicting? You're right. Why am I predicting? I'm trying my best, y'all. All I'm saying is that as far as people that is trying to project far into the future, I feel like if you're trying to predict anything past 2023, you should go home. Like, we can't predict 2024. I'm not even going to try. I'm really just staying in my lane. I'm staying. The only thing I'm predicting right now is where we're at in the primaries, which are coming up in May. That's all I'm trying to predict. I can't predict the midterms in November. I have my thoughts, but I'm not even trying to go there. I can only predict what's in front of me. And so what is in front of me is that my predictions are still pushing upward for Fetterman at the end of the primaries in May. I just think that Kenyatta is going to get some heat now because the establishment, I think they're going to run. I think they're going to primary him. I think they're going to run somebody against him in his state rep seat. I think they're going to take it off from him. I think they're going to not let him have any power because he is now fucking with their shit. Because I told you that there was a strong push for Connor. But I'm going to tell you who really played the role in giving Malcolm some delegates. Those state reps, those black state reps and those supporters in his caucus really came out for him behind the scenes. I don't know what that's going to spell for their political future, some of them, because there will be blood. There will be something. There is a consequence here. I don't know how it's going to play out, but something's happening. I just don't see Malcolm being uncontested in his state rep race. I don't see that happening. Thank goodness Brian's not running for re-election, so that's a miracle. He's pretty much out at this point. Like, he's going to be out of politics at this point for a little bit. Don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what Connor Lamb's fate is. I feel like Connor Lamb still has the establishment backing him. He's the only viable candidate to go against Fetterman. And people are saying the conversation of viability is a tough one. But I'm sorry, y'all. I'm not voting for a 31-year-old who's only served 1.5 terms. He's only served 1.5 terms in the state house. And he's not that effective. I can't just do it based off of that. The stakes are too high. They should have put Donna Bullock in the damn seat. They should put some other credible people in the seat. And I know that Donna and Jordan and all these people endorsed him, but that's more to me about optics than it is about actually doing, quote unquote, the right thing. I don't think it's the right thing. And I think that where we're at in politics is you got to vote with integrity. You got to endorse with integrity. You can't just vote people, but push people based on other things. We got to do better than that, people. We got to do better. Period. So, those are my thoughts. I see a lot of stuff going on in the world, and I see a lot of hypocrisy in the world. And it's just one of those things where I just can't help but ignore, and I can't help but call a thing in this situation. So we'll see. So before wrapping up, I just want to say that Monday, a big story is coming out. My story is coming out. I thought I was ready to tell y'all what it is, but I really gotta not tell y'all. I can't tell y'all. It's hot. It's coming. It's Monday. And I promise you all that the next episode of this podcast, hopefully, will be the special guest that was a part of that story that's coming out on Monday. It's epic. I can't wait for it to come out. And it's going to be crazy on Monday. And those who listen to the show on Monday, then you'll know. And I'm going to talk to the special guest sometime this week. We're going to get together and we're going to tape an episode. And it's going to be a special edition episode that's going to complement this. Not complement this, but complement the story that's coming out. And it's going to be big, y'all. It really is. And I'm super excited about it. And yeah, stuff I've been watching before I wrap up. I've been really watching Abbott Elementary. Still obsessed. Power Book 2 has me clutching my pearls. I've been in love with Justice Judy. Okay, I know that sounds weird, but I watched Justice Judy. I know Judge Judy and everything, but Justice Judy, they're streaming free episodes online. If you go to IBM or whatever, they let you see the whole show. You can watch all the episodes for free streaming, and it is good. I'm very highly entertained. She's got a new team with her, but it's really good. I caught up on some of the episodes. I've been really liking what I'm watching. I'm really feeling what I'm watching. Like I really enjoy watching it. Who would have thought? But 2022 remains unpredictable. So until then, like I said, I'm a little excited. So let me get my ass up off of this podcast before I start spilling the tea. But until then, y'all, be well and be best. Ernestly Speaking is recorded in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and can be found on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and SoundCloud. To stay up to date with the latest on the show, follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Mr. Ernest Owens. Use the hashtag Ernestly Speaking to tell me what you thought about this episode, and check out my website at ernestowens.com.